All right, I'm with Marc Levy, CEO of Norsemont Mining. The symbol is NOM on the CSE. And Norsemont is a unique junior mining company. They have an asset that I believe probably should be with a bigger company, and it requires more attention than it's been given the last couple of years. So we're going to, dig into this with Marc and really try to understand the opportunity here in Norsemont. Marc, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get into the mining industry? How did you become a CEO? Tell us all about yourself.
Sure, I've been involved in the mining industry since 2003. I was previously involved in tech industry and shifted in 2003 and ended up building out a company and team and acquiring a major asset in Peru, a copper porphyry asset from Rio Tinto Mitsui. And we ended up developing that and bringing it through to feasibility, and we exited that for $520 million in 2011 to Hudbay Minerals, and now it's in production. It's one of the larger copper deposits in production in Peru, and been involved in mining ever since.
Okay, yeah. When we were speaking previously, you talked about being in the cannabis industry and a big exit maybe you had in the cannabis industry. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. In 2011, we exited 4 mining companies that we controlled, one and that I was founder of, and we got involved in the cannabis industry a couple of years later. And I was one of the 3 co-founders of Aurora Cannabis, which I think today is the largest cannabis company in Canada. Originally, it was the second largest, and it was a bit of a unicorn where it went to a 16 billion market cap, which was crazy back in 2015. And now it's sitting, below $1 billion, but doing well. It's one of the leaders, and we basically had exited in the last few years the cannabis sector and re-entered the mining sector again.
I see. And so let's talk about the Choquelimpie asset. So with Norsemont, by the way, I don't know why the company's name is Norsemont when the asset is in South America, but maybe you can tell us that. How
Sure.
did you come to acquire the Choquelimpie asset in northern Chile?
Sure. So the first question, Norsemont was the original company that I had taken over, and we maintained the brand and the name. It was founded by a guy named Eagle Lawrenson, who's actually in the Mining Hall of Fame, famous guy. And in his honor, we kept that name alive, even though it's not a South American name. And obviously, because of the name, we retained the rights when we sold the asset. We brought some of the team together. So we said, hey, let's call this, Norsemont again, and Norsemont 2.0. Choquelimpie was a significant, it was the 3rd largest gold producer in Chile. We met through some lawyers, Copec, the owner, which is the largest conglomerate in Chile. They do 24 billion a year, own gas stations and grocery stores. And they were selling 2 gold assets when I met them. And they were looking to invest in copper in Peru, funny enough, right near my old asset, my stomping grounds. And we were keen on gold and met with them, structured a deal. There was a bit of a bidding process. There was another big company that was bidding for it. But in the end, I think the team that we had and the relationships that we had and how we structured the deal with them obviously worked. And we ended up acquiring the Choquelimpie asset.
Okay, so when I looked at Choquelimpie, I said, wow, this is impressive. And you just put out a 43-101, resource on it on April 15th. So there's a lot for investors to dig into if they want to look at your news on April 15th. It's actually posted prominently on the Norsemont website as well. It's almost a 100-page technical report. So there's a lot to chew on here. And I said, how could this asset be in a $15 million market cap company on the CSE? So tell us about how you actually acquired it and what's happened since you acquired the asset.
Sure. We acquired the asset in 2020. We had to make a payment and a share issuance to the lawyers and team involved in Copec. We do own it 100%. There's no payments owed anymore. We raised initial capital at 40 cents. We raised, I think, 3.2 or 3.3 million. And then we raised from our team and our board and our technical team, we raised another 3.5 million at 75 cents. And then we went out to family office, small institutions, raised another 5.5 at $1, and then another 5 at $1.60, which was a pure institutional round. And that was in 2021, 22. Things were really good in the markets through 2021, 22. And then, you know, we had a downturn in the overall markets of access to capital, and we ran out of money and got punished for it, and a few other things that had happened. So it caused a big deterioration in our share price from being, you know, a $250, $125 million company to where we are today. And now we've de-risked the asset and put out, like you said, this 43-101 resource estimate. So.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. So you acquired the asset. I saw the share price chart. 2020 was obviously kind of an interesting time in the junior mining sector, especially for gold juniors. So you caught some of that wave in like spring, summer 2020. It was like a fresh asset acquisition. I guess the market liked it at the time, but then everything kind of came apart in 2022. And I see the downtrend in the chart. So what has the company been doing the last few years?
So the last 3 years, it was survival mode. I was lending the company money to keep things alive, to be very honest, so that we maintain our share structure and not do any silly, cheap financings is what we tried to do. And just maintain the asset on a kind of a care and maintenance mode, advance small things. And we just had a very hard time the last couple of years to raise capital, like every junior. Every junior was sitting at, you know, a fraction of their real valuations and where, you know, where they previously raised capital. So we got dragged down alongside everybody, and not having the capital, the market punishes you. Unfortunately, we got caught in that situation. And so we've been really just in a holding pattern up until October last year. We raised 4 million from some large strategic investors out of Europe to allow us to finish paying down some debts, settle some debts that we had, and more importantly, get our 43-101 resource estimate out to the market in order to kind of attract the next stage of capital for the company.
Okay, so the financings that you did in 2024, they were done at 20 cents a share, is that right?
So we did one financing about 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, because we needed a bit of money. We raised about $600,000-700 grand at 20 cents. It's 5-6 guys that were already in at $1 plus, including myself and my family that put up the money. And then last October, we were in the middle of doing a raise, and unfortunately, a major shareholder of ours passed away, and his estate, not telling us, took our stock down from 25-30 cents right down to 10. So we ended up doing a 10-cent equity and an 11-cent convertible debenture to a very select group of individuals that were either A, strategic from Europe long-term, B, existing shareholder that's in at $1 plus and needs to average down. So I have a lot of American investors that came in to the stock at the $1 plus rounds and $1.60. And so some of those people averaged down at 10 and 11 cent was a convertible. And now we've executed with the money that we had to reduce our debt. We're getting metallurgical work done that should come out to the market in short order. And we've also obviously executed on getting that 43-101 to market and filed with CDAR. So it's available to our shareholders now.
Okay, makes sense. So just going back to the asset acquisition. So this was acquired in 2020. That's when it was finalized. And did the vendor of the asset get any shares in the company? Yes. And do they still own the shares?
Yeah. So the vendor of the asset, they wanted to exit. The asset is too small for their company. They are investing $950 million. They invested US into a copper assets. So they're looking for assets that produce hundreds of millions of dollars to their bottom line. So they wanted to exit this. We did a deal to pay them cash and stock. Their last tranche of stock, they had 6 million shares. A couple of summers ago, I got a little tired with whenever they had an escrow release, they just market order and hurt our market. And so I cut a deal. There was 2 years left on the escrow. I cut a deal to buy it off of them with our family trust, my wife, as I've mentioned to you previously. And we bought those 6 million shares at 50 cents a share and cleaned them out so that they can't harm our market anymore. So those been put away now.
Interesting. So they had no interest in continuing to have upside to the Choquelimpie asset. They just wanted to cash out and move into to copper and larger things.
Yeah, well, there was a movement back in 2019 and 20, and even up until about a year and a half ago. A lot of Chilean companies were trying to diversify outside of Chile to reduce risk, geopolitical risk. That tide has changed now. That's why I say this. But they wanted out of Chile. They want to have assets and money invested in other jurisdictions. Hence why they invested in Peru, and they didn't want to have these mining assets in Chile. And they weren't interested in gold. They were interested in copper. So, and obviously back in 2019, when I originally met them at late 2019 and early 2020, gold wasn't as hot a topic, and the price of gold wasn't really on the radar for many. So then we wanted exposure to gold for our family, for our investors. We thought, the economies of the world were a little bit challenged, and we thought getting exposure to gold would be the right time, and that's why we looked at acquiring this from them wholly.
Okay, so you're absolutely right on your gold bet. Gold price has done fantastic since 2019. So the Choquelimpie asset in the resource that you just put out, it's about 2.7 million ounces in all categories, including a large indicated component at 0.83 grams per ton. So I see that and I think, well, that's pretty good, especially in comparison to your market cap. So tell us about the opportunity at Choquelimpie as you see it today.
Sure. With regards to obviously the opportunity, it's a very large project, and it's mainly been drilled down to 70 meters because they were primarily processing oxides, and it's a high sulfidation epithermal system, which most geos would tell you goes down about 300 meters. So when we acquired this, they had an actual non-compliant resource of 5 million ounces that was done by Amick Foster Wheeler, a very reputable firm, which is why we liked it and acquired it. But there was new rules to 43-101 that you can't count non-economic ounces. You can only count economic ounces. So you're right. We have about 2.74 million total ounces. Primarily, I think 80% of that's in the indicated category. We believe, and our thesis is we can drill deeper down from 0 to 70, now down to 300 meters, and we can easily, triple the size of the deposit. And so we're targeting, we can get this to 7.5 to 9 million ounces pretty easily. And I think as soon as you cross that 5 million ounce number, you get the attention of majors and mid-tier producers that say, hey, wait a second, this is too big. We got to take a look at this potentially. So that's a key strategy for us, is to grow this resource.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what struck me as I dig into the project and the company, I say, this asset is special. Again, I don't see many juniors have assets like this with the amount of drilling that's been done, the number of ounces in resource, the infrastructure that's in place, right? And then when you start digging into the geophysics you've done, the potential to make a discovery at depth. I mean, it's exciting to me. It's exciting to me to see an asset like this in the hands of a company that has been flying under the radar. And now you're just starting here in spring 2025 to sort of make some noise, do some interviews, get the story out. Okay, so I see a big project that could consume a major size budget. Like I mean, I could see somebody spend $30 million here to advance this project, 40 million even, right? So how does Norsemont move this ball forward down the field at Choquelimpie?
Yeah, so our main goal here is to do the next phase of drilling. And the one wonderful thing about the project is it is a very complex project, meaning there's lots of meat on the bones. You know, we have, like you said, we have full infrastructure so we can fast track towards production. We have what we call dumps, which is kind of waste rock, where we have 210,000 ounces in the dumps, which is very easily put into production. And basically from a thumb suck from Capus Cassidy, which is one of the firms that did all the original engineering work for Shell that owned it previously. You know, a $65 million investment can yield us $400 million profit just on those 200,000 ounces. And then, of course, you know, our goal is to grow the resource. And a hidden gem, our blue sky, is, you know, we believe that there is a large copper porphyry that helped create this high sulfidation epithermal system. So it pushed up all this gold silver mineralization to the surface. So you talked about our geophysics, and we've got some interesting geophysical data that we want to investigate. And we've done a little bit of work and have a thesis and theory that we want to test in our next program to see if we can discover a copper porphyry deposit on top of the gold that we have, which would be, I think, a big bonus. And that's kind of a bit of our blue sky or the higher risks part of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting, and that seems to me like a no-brainer. Obviously, it requires having the budget to do that deeper drilling, but it seems to me like you got to test that theory, right? You got to test that theory. Is it true at the Suri pit that there's been some past intercepts that hit some high-grade copper? Correct.
Yeah, in the southwestern part of the project where the Suri pit is, and even the bottom of the Choque pit, we've got drill data where there's nice copper intercepts. And we did, one of our last holes hit some pretty amazing copper intercepts at the bottom of the hole. And that's kind of where we weren't really looking for copper, because we only drilled down 300 meters and we know or felt that copper would be a lot deeper. And so we hit some mineralization down at the bottom of the hole that was very high grade, 1% copper and 3, 4, 5 gram gold and 100 gram silver. So we hit some pretty amazing numbers on one of our last holes. So we want to go back to that area and drill down 600 meters and test for that copper porphyry, because that's kind of like that would be the holy grail, and that would eclipse the value of our gold deposit even, which is incredible.
So, you know, when I see this, I see, okay, we can expand the gold resource that's near surface. That could be an open pit to put back to put that back into operation at some point in the future. That's plan A, maybe. Plan B is to drill deeper and turn this into a 5 or 10 million ounce resource. That seems logical. Plan C, drill for porphyry discovery that's even deeper, maybe. And suddenly you're a gold and copper play, where you've got the shallow gold and you've got the deeper copper that a major mining company might be interested in taking a look at, right? So there's like 3 plans. And then there's like plan D, which is like you've got gold and dumps at almost a gram per ton grade. So you got 4 potential avenues to move forward. So how do you choose, which path to pursue?
Sure. Well, that's the key for our next drill program that we anticipate executing this year. Is we want to do some shallow holes into oxide mineralization, which could enhance that production play that we talked about, that low-hanging fruit. We can develop probably another several 100,000 ounces and take this to over 1 million ounces of oxides. Now you've got not a $400 million profit, but you've got $1 billion plus profit on the low-hanging fruit. B, we want to drill 6 to 8 holes probably reverse circ now because they're better value holes that we don't need data. We don't need geological data into down 300 meters to expand the existing high grade zones that we have. So we have some really amazing 35, 32, double digit grams per ton gold in, from 0 to 25 or 0 to 35 meters that we want to drill down 300 meters and see if we got similar mineralization at depth. So that we would want to drill 6 to 8 high impact, high grade holes, because that would add a lot of resource and it would upgrade the overall grade of the deposit, which is always a nice thing. And then we want to drill 2 deeper holes down 600 meters, just south of this, north of the Suri pit, south of the Choquelimpie pit, where we encountered this copper mineralization, but we want to see if we can perforate a copper porphyry and get an idea of what the size would potentially be. So that's the biggest issue. I think we know there's copper there. We know there's a copper porphyry there. Even if I had our copper expert on the team, Dr. Dyakov, he'll say, yeah, we have a porphyry. We just can't tell you how big it is. It might be a small porphyry. The grade is amazing, but how big is it? We are an elephant country. So my old copper deposit is north of me. The copper deposit COPEC invested 950 million in Minagusta is north of me. So it's all along a whole copper belt from Peru right down into Chile, into northern Chile. So we're in that belt. So we do want to test that. And that's the good thing about our asset is, if let's assume the worst case scenario, we don't hit copper. Well, we drilled 300 meters, we got 2 grams per ton gold. That's a pretty incredible hole. And so it's not wasted money. If we don't hit the copper, I come back telling you I have a consolation prize. Second place is a lot of gold. So it's kind of a good scenario, because a lot of guys that look for copper porphyries are drilling in the dark, needle in the haystack, and they're coming up with blanks every time they drill and getting geological data. So for us, we'll still get some mineralization, which is nice.
Okay. Still going back to, still trying to comprehend the opportunity here, and also what happened in the past. So this was a former operating mine in the late 80s and early 90s.
Correct.
And Choquelimpie had total gold production of, I think, a little over 400,000 ounces during that time. Why did the former operator shut it down in 92? Obviously the gold price wasn't doing great, but if they were mining in 90, 91, why wouldn't they keep it operating?
Yeah, the main reason is when gold just dipped at $300 or below, it became not profitable for them. And that previous operator was Shell, and then I think Northgate Minerals, and then it became COPEC's asset, and they kept it on care and maintenance for a long time. And actually, Rio Tinto in 2007 and 2008, which is a good thing to mention. They drilled 3 holes looking for a copper porphyry down 1,000 meters, but missed. But they also didn't have the MT survey and the geological survey we had, because that technology didn't get invented till 2010 to look down 1,000 meters. So that's something also to note, that Rio Tinto is a very smart company. They know what they're looking for, but they set a budget, drill 3 holes. We hit, great. If not, if they would have hit, we wouldn't be here talking, obviously. But yeah, so that's kind of the situation we have.
Where did they drill?
They drilled near the Vizcacha pit, near the Suri pit, and then way below in the south. So they drilled 3 holes in a bit of a triangle. And if you overlay our geophysics, we call it the purple banana in our deck. There's a purple anomaly, and it's like in between those holes. So they just missed it on the top hole, like missed it by that much kind of thing. So that's what I say, hey, if they would have maybe moved that hole up 100 meters or 200 meters, maybe they would have hit something and we wouldn't be here. So
do you have that core that they drilled?
Yeah, so we have all the core, right? We have 140,000 meters and 1,700 drill holes. That's about $50 million of today drilling in our core shack.
Yeah, so that's a classic major, drill program, 3 deep holes spaced super widely apart, just prospecting with the drill. And they figure, well, this is a porphyry system. One of these holes is going to show us something that'll help us to vector in. So it'd be interesting to see what your technical guys' take on that is. I mean, obviously they were drilling all around what you're seeing in the MT survey, but porphyry, there should still be something in that core that says, hey, you're not in it, but you're
near it,
too far away from it. So speaking of a small gold mine, you have this gold sitting in waste dumps that is many multiples of your company's current market cap in terms of the value. And even if you accounted for some high cost to process it, it's still more than your current market cap. So
yeah,
why not just advance this on the concept? Let's put all this stuff on a leach pad and turn this into a leach operation, generate cash flow, and then we can drill some deep holes to try to target this porphyry, with the cash flow.
Yeah, so there is some members of our board that like that strategy of becoming, cash flow positive. It's a 2-year time horizon to get it into production. And then, if you look at, 200,000 ounces today is 700 million. And if you put whatever cost basis you want, typical leaching operations are about $500 an ounce. I mean, even if you use $1,000 an ounce, right? And then initial CapEx is 65 million. There's still at least $400 million profit just with the waste rock. That being said, we also have a 3,000 ton a day plant that we need to refurbish a little bit, and then we could process and crush existing oxides. So we have at least 500,000-600,000 ounces of oxides, and we also know a lot of other high grade. We have a high grade oxide zone we defined through a sampling program where it's 10 and 5 gram material. So, we feel we can take it to 1 million plus ounces of oxide and continue the production play. So that is a strategy, but in the meantime, it's very cost effective to do a drill campaign to augment the size of the oxides and increase some higher grade oxides and target, a couple of holes into this porphyry, as well as I mentioned earlier, drilling the deeper part of the deposit, the higher grade part of the deposit. So that's the strategy for the next drill campaign. And after that, we're also working on another phase of drilling that, will require additional capital in order to actually double the size of the resource through an inferred resource. So that's kind of the phase 4 drill campaign.
So the plan in 2025 is not follow the heap leaching path yet, although that's something that you have in your back pocket for a future date. It's to drill some of these near surface higher grade zones and then also test some of these zones to depth to just build ounces and just show investors what's here, right?
Yeah, so the game plan is to definitely increase the size of the resource, test for the copper. We do have a budget in our upcoming program where we will be spending $250,000 doing a pre-feasibility on the dumps. And that can be a very unique way of unlocking access to capital using the dumps to either stream silver, do a royalty, or stream some of the gold or forward sell the gold on the dumps. So with a pre-feasibility, there's ways to monetize the gold there, and then we would maybe avoid going back to the capital markets and avoid future dilution. So it is a part of our strategy.
Okay. And so what's the budget? Like, what do you need to get from point A to point B, which I guess point B would be having a drill program large enough that if it goes well, it will lead to a re-rate in the company valuation where you can do a much larger program in the future.
Yeah, so this next phase would be 2.5 million US, 4 million Canadian approximately, and that would allow us to execute 50 holes, shallow holes in the oxide zone, targeting 5 to 10 gram material. And then it would allow us to do probably 8 reverse circ holes down to 300 meters into the higher grade zones in Vizcacha and Suri, and then also 2 deeper holes of 600 meters, diamond holes, into where we want to target the copper porphyry. So that's basically what that would amount to, and that would provide us a lot of, I think, news, a lot of excitement. It would help re-rate the company, because I think we can drill some of these holes in our higher grade zones and pull, you know, double-digit grams per ton over large intercepts that I think the market would then reward us substantially, and then we'd be able to go back to the capital markets or leverage pre-feasibility on the dumps.
Yeah, I mean, just going from a state of relative dormancy to activity and an active drill program, that could be quite exciting for the market by itself. When was the last time there was a drill program at Choquelimpie?
Our drilling program was in 2021.
Okay. So we're talking 4 years where it's been relatively dormant.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this area of Chile. So I know it's in the high Andes, so the elevation 4,000 plus meters, not too unusual for this area of the world. There's lots of mines that operate above 4,000 meters, but maybe what's your relationship with the locals? How much do the locals care about this mine? Have they expressed that they'd like to see it back in operation? Tell us about some of the local towns in the area, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so one of the main towns, the smaller towns nearby, 2,000 people, is Putre. The underlying landowner is a woman that's a very influential woman in the community, and she's been paid rent from the beginning of time on this. And we've got a good relationship with her. Our management down there has a good relationship with her. And the one thing she asks for, as she labels it, I want you to hire my grandchildren, but really it means the town's children, which we're talking about 30 and 40-year-olds she's referring to as children. And so most of the people are, you know, that work at the project, not all of them, are local to that town. We're the only game in town for them to better their lives, to get them jobs and educate them and bring in infrastructure. And we've also got a relationship with the local Aymara, which is the local indigenous people there. They blessed our first drill campaign. Actually, they went out and did a ceremony. It's in our deck. So our relationship is amazing with the indigenous and with the local community. And the government's been very supportive of our project. You know, the first time we got our drill permit, they told us we would get it by June. And then, you know, there was a few delays. Guy was on vacation and I was getting nervous, thinking I'm getting the runaround. And, you know, by July, we had our drill permit. And they've told us ever since, let us know what you do before you do it, so that we've got your back. So we are in a very economically depressed area. And I think we're one of the only big game in town that can create gainful employment and income. So I think we're really an important part of the future of that area.
Okay. And is the mine currently permitted, or did those, when it shut down in 92, did the permits then also go dormant? And would there be a lengthy process to get this operation back up to being fully permitted?
So one thing unique about the project is we have a presidential decree on 2 of the main zones that cover the pits that were in production previously. Obviously, there's a lot of mineralization around those areas. And so for us, we would go through a permitting process to be able to put it back into production. On the dumps, for example, you got to do environmental baseline studies, which we started doing some, you know, testing groundwater and earth and all that over a 2-year period. So it's a 2-year process on the dumps. And I don't know, you know, what type of time frame for permitting a larger, you know, 5 to 10 million ounce sulfide type of a deposit would take. But, you know, the key is always having the community on side. In South America, we've operated there all the time. Community, community, community. You do good by them. You do the right things by them. You're open and in your dialogues and supportive. they're not going to be in your way. If not, they're going to get in your way, and then you're not getting a permit no matter how good you are.
Got it. Okay. Just stepping back here, why do you want to be the chairman and CEO of Norsement? I mean, I feel like, you're the kind of guy who could do a few different things, with your time and your energy. You put, I think you said 9 million of your money and your family's, money into this company. I don't see you taking a large salary or giving yourself tons of stock options or anything. So I'm not clear what the incentive is here for you to put your time and energy into this company.
Yeah, I mean, originally when we put the deal together, I was going to be the chairman. We had another guy that was going to come on as the CEO, who's a Chilean guy and a lawyer. And when we started doing a roadshow and trying to raise money, they all said, "We'll bankroll you, Marc. We don't want to bankroll that guy." And so he kind of went another direction, and I got roped into being the CEO by some of the earlier capital that came in here. And obviously, I've done this before several times. We've had several exits, and I've put a lot of my money in. So I want to have oversight on advancing the company and looking out for the shareholders, which many of which are friends, family, colleagues, and previous investors that I've been working with and dealing with for 20 plus years.
What if another investor came to you and said, Marc, I really like this, this asset. What if another investor came to you and said, Marc, I really like this asset. I like the Choquelimpie project. I like the potential here, and I want to write a pretty sizable check, but I want you to be the chairman and I want another CEO. Like, you have too much, control over the company. You're a huge shareholder. You're the chairman and the CEO. What would you say to that investor?
Obviously, in the end, I work for the shareholders. That's how I look at it. No matter how large of a shareholder I am, I always go with my shareholders. If there's the right talent to come in, I'd love to have somebody better than me running the project and me taking a step back. I'm very open to that, having the right operator and person in place, because that was the original game plan. But until we find that right person or they step up to the plate, I'm here in the meantime, doing the best that I can. And, I'm used to this. I've operated in South America. My whole career has been in South America. Yeah, we'd be very open to that.
Okay. And who does the company have in country to manage operations? Like, when you start a new drill program, like, can you tell us about one person or a couple people that will be in charge of it?
Yeah, sure. So one of our key members of our board is Michael Thiel, who's a mining engineer in Santiago, Chile. He has put in Esperanza into production, which was basically a exploration play, and in 6 years, 2.7 billion later, into production on time, on budget. And he also helped a major turnaround Las Bronces, which is a famous mine in Chile, but a complicated mine, and turn that thing around. So he's got mine building experience. He has a team as well that's been, Sebastian, his partner's been to our site as well. So he oversees a lot of the technical stuff. We also have our in-country general manager, CFO, Susan Little, who's a local and very sophisticated, was vice president, CFO of banks previously. So she's very hands-on with the locals and the community, and she handles the hiring of anybody locally that works for us. So we've got a good team there locally, and we're looking to grow the team actually, to expand things once we get start drilling the project. We'll need a bit more resources on the ground.
And do you have a drill permit right now?
Yep, we do have a drill permit. So that was a slip of the tongue, but we have the drill permit already.
So if you got the money in the treasury, you can mobilize to site pretty quickly. Like, what's the time frame? Like, once a financing closes and you're ready to go, how long of a timeline are we talking about to get the rig up there and the crew there? Yeah.
So we only need one diamond drill rig, and depending on the RC side of it. So the mobilization is easy, and there are several contractors that specialize in drilling these types of deposits. It's called high altitude drilling, obviously, but that, like you said, that is the norm in this world. My previous company, Norsemont 1.0, was at the same type of an altitude as well, 4,500 to 5,000 meters or 4,700 meters. So there's several companies that want the business, and we know them, and they're capable. So, once we have the capital in hand, we can execute on drilling immediately. And we're good to drill till Christmas time. So till the end of the calendar year.
Oh yeah, because the seasons are different because it's in the south of the equator. Marc, I'm going to give you the last word. Say what you'd like to say to investors and viewers. What can they expect from Norsemont?
Sure. We've got a world-class deposit and team that has done it before. We're highly undervalued. The CEO and his family, that's me, are the largest investors of capital into the company. And we raised a lot of the capital, and our cost base is much higher. It's a multiple of the market, and significant upside with an existing resource and infrastructure. And I think we're the lowest priced company on the CFC today with an actual resource. We're trading, below $10 an ounce, which I don't think anybody is that bad. So it's a very unique opportunity. And you said it best, where we're starting to get out there, tell the story, and get some recognition, and basically get re-engaged with investors, because now we're actively, doing metallurgical work. We've got some new technical people joining the team. We obviously want to execute on our drill program. So hopefully over the next course of the next 12 months and 24 months, we'll be very actively putting out news flow and drill data and getting out there. I'm looking forward to getting out and traveling and telling the story again, getting out to trade shows.
Marc Levy, Chairman and CEO of Norsemont Mining, thank you for your time.